Honey, look at those beautiful clouds.
Those aren't clouds, Daddy. Those are chemtrails.
Chemtrails? What are chemtrails?
Chemical trails, Daddy, and they're very bad.
This is Dane Wigington with GeoEngineeringWatch.org radio for the week of May 3rd, 2014. The onslaught of insanity continues. I'll outline that in a minute. We have a few guests with us today, very special guests, Jan, Elizabeth, and Elizabeth's son, Luke, very important people who have done a lot for the cause, a lot. Instead of sitting on the bench and complaining, they've actually put the rubber to the road, and we'll have them outlining that in just a bit. We have Russ Tanner with us today, as always. Russ, huge help to the cause overall in many camps. Russ is of assistance to a great many people in this fight, myself included. Richard Sachs, also from Arizona. Richard has a lot of insight on what we can do to mitigate our personal health while we remain in this fight. This allows us to fight better if we're firing on most neurons and retaining most of our health. So Richard will chime in a bit as well. The global situation overall continues to disintegrate. In fact, we see now countries that are behaving much like the U.S., like China. China is now instigating a fight on, quote, terrorism with the same sort of terminology that the U.S. uses, that this will be a long and very complex battle. It's simply an excuse to clamp down on their citizens with whatever means they choose. There's no question that's exactly what's going on. China followed the same model of the U.S. with the central bank, the money printing. The whole global economy is now being propped up very precariously with collapse imminent with printed central bank money. All major countries are doing this. The whole global economy is simply a snake eating its own tail, period. All the figures are fake, fictitious. The notion that the U.S. jobless rate has gone down is absolutely ridiculous. When 300,000 or 400,000 people fall off the back end of the conveyor, they no longer count. So you have this giant pile of unemployed people that don't count in the equation. Everything is fictitious. From UV readings, for example, that we know with the climate being fictitious, to radiation readings, economic measurements, everything's fictitious. So back to what else the power structure is doing now that the walls are closing in. We see another deadly respiratory virus that started in the Middle East now has hit the U.S. There's the first case here in the U.S. So let's add this to Ebola. All these viruses appear to be engineered. This is similar to the SARS virus. SARS, by the way, was race-specific. A lot of people don't know that. 95% of the mortalities were Asian. So this is what many scientists do here in the U.S. They don't have any sense of morality, no sense of honor. They simply excuse away whatever they do as being their quote-unquote job. And this doesn't fly anymore. And these people need to be exposed, period, plain and simple. All the people that are involved with all the crimes, of which I could go on for hours, if not days, outlining, all of these people are accessories to these crimes, all the way down to, for example, meteorologists at let's use Weather Channel. I certainly like to focus on them because they're the epitome of this sort of towing the line for the insanity as quote-unquote their job. These people are all helping to hide crimes against humanity. There's no other word for that, period. So in the case of climate engineering, which affects all these other elements as well, I mean, as our immune systems go down because we're exposed to this constant onslaught of biological material, toxic metals, everything grinds our body's defenses down, so we become much more vulnerable to released pathogens, which Ebola and viruses like SARS may be. So the climate affects this as well, because as sunlight's diminished, fungal elements proliferate. Again, of the 200-plus species a day of plant and animal going extinct, 70 to 80% of that is fungally related, all related to immune system breakdown, even in plants and animals. So we have undesirable elements taking over, just like when you contaminate a human body with antibiotics, what takes over? Fungus. You kill all the good microbes, the negative elements take over. So as we have the climate disrupted more and more every day. I mean, in California here, we were supposed to get several inches of rain last week. We got a quarter of an inch. So that rain was migrated east to be used in the ongoing engineering of all parts of the country. We had 2 days ago snow in New Mexico, and I'm looking at radar and I can see it, but I verified on the ground that this did indeed happen. At the same time, we had temperatures in the 60s and raining in Canada, north of Montana. Now, how normal is that? So we get no rain in California. For the second time, Florida got 2 feet of rain in just over a day. I'm sure many people saw that. Virtually slaughtered Florida. So while we have this whole system of, quote, experts, scientists, climate scientists, none of whom seem capable of telling the truth at this point. I mean, it's astounding. I have every morning I have to remind myself I'm not dreaming this. This is just a giant nightmare, which almost nobody in the levels of, quote, protective agencies or government or even the common citizen seems to want to realize or accept or look at. And you trace it back, I can see with my own kids and the sort of homework, quote unquote homework they get, that is really a sort of chasing exercise that doesn't really teach them much of anything practically, and it's certainly part of the programming that ends up making the kind of society we have, which is a total failure. Industrialized society is a complete failure, and that failure will be very evident soon. So again, not to negate the efforts that we're all engaged in, exposing the climate engineering is absolutely, positively the single greatest leap, I should say, we could take in the right direction. It points out the epitome of human insanity, and it would be the most uniting issue of all. But as the population is kept occupied, kids are kept occupied with, my kids have homework literally 6-7 days a week, and it's ridiculous homework that really makes no rational trajectory to any particular point. And then we have a population, of course, that's kept occupied with so many details that they can't think about anything in their surroundings. You know, they're all on their iPads and so forth, as we all know. I saw a demo on that once, by the way. It was pretty astounding. They went on a college campus and had jugglers and other sorts of major distractions right in the field of vision of people walking along on their iPhones. Never even looked up. So the bottom line is this: they have us by the throat. They have all of us by the throat. Not only are they poisoning us day in, day out, and this is not alarmism, it's a literal fact. Anybody who's familiar with the issue at hand, the climate engineering, knows this is true. Spraying is getting worse everywhere. I'm hearing about it from as far south as Tasmania, New Zealand, Australia, Southeast Asia. I'm hearing from everybody, everywhere. They're being hammered. Again, the insects are all dying in Southeast Asia, according to a very coherent person I communicate with there. That's saying a lot, because they have a lot of insects there. So not only are they contaminating everything, they can shut off the moisture wherever they want, and they can crank open the spigot wherever they want, wreaking havoc wherever they go. And I can't imagine what keeps people from making this a priority. For a lot of people, they're not willing to look at it at all. And we see a division, at least I think I see a division, with people who are digging into their ideology more and more. When I left the show last Saturday, went to what was left of Earth Day here in Northern California, encountered a lot of people that seem a little more concerned about this issue now. They're hearing about it. But encountered people who are digging in to their total denial and very aggressively digging in. And we know this from psychoanalysis. Those who toe the official line tend to be very aggressive and abrasive. And you reach a point with these people where you've had enough, where you need to tell them to their face that they're the problem with the world. And I had such an encounter last weekend, and not that that's productive per se, but at certain points, it's okay to tell people when you know you're going to get nowhere with them because of their denial. It's okay to tell them that you know what they are. I had a meeting with the head of the Sierra Club in Northern California last Saturday after I left the show as well, until he walked away from the conversation because he didn't want to hear. I've been serving him up data for 5 years. 5 years. He's done exactly nothing. Doesn't want to talk about it. Doesn't want to look at the information. Doesn't want to do a damn thing. So this is what we have with so many of the quote-unquote environmentalists. It's absolutely shocking, their behavior. And I want to share one more memo that was sent to me this morning from Josephina Frail. She's a very intelligent and very effective activist in Europe that I communicate with. And this is from a major environmental movement there, quote-unquote environmental. I use the term very loosely in this case. They are denying this movement, which is, they call themselves Ecocide. That's an acronym. They call themselves that's the acronym for their group. And this is their response to her attempt, Josephina's attempt, to get them to address geoengineering. And I quote here from their document of denial. However, the emphasis lies on the word potential, referring to geoengineering. That is just a proposal. As long as there is no scientific evidence and no impact visible, we can unfortunately not include geoengineering on our website. And with scientific evidence, I don't refer to evidence about health impacts. This is indeed a big problem, but not considered ecocide. But to evidence that would prove that the ecosystem is endangered or destroyed by these practices, i.e. geoengineering. Let me recall the definition of ecocide. Ecocide is an extensive damage to destruction or loss of ecosystems of a given territory to such an extraordinary pace, enjoyed at an extraordinary pace, So destruction of an ecosystem. Now finally they end up with, currently geoengineering does not cause any damage that would fulfill our definition of ecocide. Really, isn't that astounding? So far, it is all contained in the area of research. How do they know that? Therefore, I am afraid that we can't include geoengineering at the present time on our website. Just like Greenpeace, just like Sierra Club, just like World Wildlife Federation, and so many others, completely lame in this equation. So bottom line is this, and we'll hear what Jan and Elizabeth have done to overcome this sort of resistance, because they're the kind of activists we need more of, absolutely. But the bottom line is, it's going to come down to us. It comes down to us starting spot fires of awareness, period. And while we have things happening like in Kiev, by the way, people should keep their eye on that situation too, because our government is pushing toward World War III in Kiev. They're behaving absolutely tyrannically beyond comprehension. Our U.S. media is simply a machine, a mechanism of total propaganda and lies at this point. And this is all connected to climate engineering, because as the walls start to close in, the curtains pull back, the resources are getting lean, people are waking up. You have, I think, 92 countries did not sign on to the latest U.S. proposal for Kiev. People have had enough around the globe. They've had enough of the Western complete runaway juggernaut of total insanity. So we need to keep our eye on that situation as well. But the bottom line is, if we all continue to start spot fires of awareness effectively, even for those people who reject it, that seed is sitting somewhere on the shelf. And as their world implodes, and implode it will, wait and see, those seeds will sprout. And so our work is not in vain, absolutely not in vain. And as things implode, if enough of those seeds are planted, it will change the flavor of what we face, because these people will have to wake up. So, Russ, Richard, I know you guys are both, I think, in the same mindset of no matter how futile it feels, we continue on. I think Jan and Elizabeth, certainly you guys have not laid down on the job at all. You've been very active. So if I could bring on Elizabeth, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Good. If you could share to start with, and then, Russ and Richard may have questions for you. When did you first become aware of the spraying, and how long did it take you to realize the gravity of it, and what wheels did you put in motion then?
Yeah, I would say it was probably under a year ago. I was driving in my car, and I drive to work every day, and I would see these white lines spraying from aircraft in like very strange, weird patterns. They were vertically, diagonally, some were horizontally, but there were multiple aircraft as well. And then as they sprayed these white lines, they would expand out and get bigger and wider, and some would feather out.
Had anybody told you about the issue before? Had anybody mentioned the issue ever to you before that point?
I'll be honest with you, when we had that Hurricane Sandy last year, everybody was saying, back then even, that something was weird, and we wondered how that happened, and it was so catastrophic. I mean, we suffered in New Jersey. Literally, it was the worst storm I have ever, in my whole life, have ever experienced. It was catastrophic. It didn't matter if you lived near the water or not. The flooding that took place, the massive wind and damage from it.
But you heard about that? You had the climate modification mentioned to you then, is that correct? And then
we would hear things about it, but what happened was we would see things, and so we started looking it up, and researching it on our own. And you started to see that there were weather modification programs out there, and that's really what, I guess, we were so taken back by this, and the more we started researching and reading it, the more we started to see this, and then just visualizing it and seeing it, and then we got on the Facebook and joined these groups, and Global Skywatch was one of the first groups that I had joined because I wanted to find out more about it and how many people saw it and how long it's been going on, and that became even more of a nightmare to find out how many years that these programs have been put in place. And then I come to find out, after we became active, my little guy was seeing it, my mom, we have relatives that are 92 years old and children that are as young as 7 and 8 that see this every single day,
When you say we, do you mean you and Luke, or do you mean you and Jan?
All of our family, friends, everybody was talking about it. We would point it out and say, what is that? Did you see that? And we'd start to research it and read about it. And you would notice, especially during sunrise and sunset, you'd look and see the spraying. It would totally be blocking out the sun. The sun would try to peek through during sunrise, and all of a sudden you'd see this spraying going on. And it would eventually become a complete whited out sky, blocking the sun entirely.
When did you connect it up with the health? I mean, certainly we've all seen that kind of skies. When did you start to connect it up with health issues and issues that might have affected your own family?
I was getting horrible loud ringing in both of my ears, ear pain, and I wasn't feeling well. I was getting pain in my joints and bones. The doctor ran a whole blood test on me. I was extremely low in vitamin D. They didn't have any explanation for the loud ringing in my ears. I had very severe headaches. My little guy was getting massive nosebleeds on heavy days of spraying. The school would be calling me and telling me that his nose would not stop bleeding. It was that bad. Vertigo, nausea, I would have pain in the jaw. Both of us became extremely asthmatic. We had slight asthma. It was so bad where you're using a nebulizer every single day, 3-4 times a day, getting sinus and upper respiratory infections, difficulty breathing, a chronic cough, sore throat, continuously chronic, going back and forth to the doctors. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Richard might have some, health input on that. I know he has a lot to offer in that regard. We'll get to that in a second. What was the span of time between when you really became conscious of what was going on and when you connected the health effect? What was the span of time between tying those two together?
The health effect was going on, and they weren't giving me any explanations why I kept getting sick. I was getting sicker and sicker, and I'm like, something's going on. It's not right, and I didn't feel good. It was like you constantly felt like you were coming down with something, and,
I was going to interject here. I'm speaking for myself. It almost seems like, you write those things off as, I'm getting older, maybe I'm feeling a little pain here, or maybe, and you start to think that maybe it's all in your mind, but when you really know what's going on and what those chemicals are causing, then you say, well, hey, there's a reason for this. It's not just I'm getting older, or, it's
but doesn't you bring up a great point, Jan. And doesn't our society and the medical industry especially teach us to just blow everything off? It's just, you're getting older, or just expect this or expect that, and that's exactly how we're taught. Just lay in the boiling water and boil like a frog, and this is same with the UV. I talk to many people here in California because we're baking here. The sun is intensely hot in your face. You can't stand in it, but they convince themselves, well, I'm just getting older. Yeah, sure, it's burning the bark off of trees, but it must not be anything actually going on, or certainly the government would tell us about it. And that sort of mentality is absolutely ridiculous. But Elizabeth, on health issues that relate to what you've gone through, anything with your family. I mean, when did, again, the span of time before you really connected that dot, when you first knew this was going on, and then you decided, hey, this has to be a cause here. I mean, how long did it take you? A week, a month?
Very, very quickly. I just said, this is not right. I don't feel good. I'm going to start looking into this. This is just not right. My child was getting sicker and sicker. I mean, it was just out of control. So I would say as soon as I started seeing the spraying too, it was like all making sense to me, you go outside, I could taste the metal in my throat, in my mouth. It was like a nasty metallic taste. My nose was burning from it. It was just like on heavy spray days, you can breathe. I was like having trouble breathing, even just driving to work, going from my house to my job, and being in the car, and just the smell outside. It was nasty. And so I actually contacted the, DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, and the EPA locally. I contacted Air Enforcement Authority, which was actually suggested by the DEP, the County Health Department, and followed up with several folks, okay? And I reported this. I said, this is just out of control. There's something wrong. This is not right. It's spraying, the smell, everything about it, just getting sick, having these nosebleeds, and these chronic sinus infections, and my lungs would burn, and it just wasn't right. So basically we would put in, case numbers. They would give us a case number. You call it in, and they give us a case number. And there were people I talked to at the EPA that answered the phone that knew exactly what this was, told me they never heard of it until they started working there. And from answering the phones and taking these complaints, they started researching it and found out that this is definite spraying going on in the sky, and they were admitting to this. So I said to him, what are we going to do about it, And I got some names and numbers. I would take the case number and follow up with the next line, and they would get back to me, and then they, say, we'll look into it, call back in a couple of weeks. We'd call back in a couple of weeks. Jan and I did this relentlessly. And they would say, the case number's closed. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Oh, it's out of our jurisdiction, and now you have to contact the FAA. So I contact the FAA and provided them with credible evidence as well. And again, they're like, are you sure you're not talking about crop dusting? The plane's crop dust? I said, no. I have pictures, I have video, I have proof, and we did test results, and that's what was really scary, is Jan and I did some test results of the snow. We had all that nucleated, geoengineered snow that came from, I don't know, one day it was 50 degrees, I'll never forget this. 2 days later it was 30 below zero with the wind chill, with this polar vortex that they created. And this was going on and on.
You dropped 80 degrees, you're saying. You dropped 80 degrees roughly. So, yeah, I mean, this is hard to, Russ, I know you have all kinds of, I mean, you can't sleep at night, Russ, right, when there's a lot of spraying going on, is that correct?
That's correct, absolutely. And Liz, I sympathize with you. I taste the metal in myself. It burns my lungs. It gives me heart problems. Makes my joints hurt, muscles hurt. So I'm right with you. But yeah, definitely let you not get into deep sleep cycles for a lot of people. So you only get shallow sleep.
So Russ, I mean, again, when Russ, obviously you became aware of this, you jumped in the fight. Same on my end. Same with Richard. Same with Jan. Same with Elizabeth. We got Luke in the fight as well, thankfully, because we need to reach the kids. And this is the intangible. This is the hard part to put your finger on. What makes some people sense the danger, see it clearly, and take action, while so many other people, most of which can't even see it, and those that see it, the majority of them can't seem to figure out that they have a part in this play. That this
well,
is
and on top of it, I can just interject another that's very major and big. Where are the squirrels? Where are the birds? Where are the bats? Where is the wildlife out here? We have had, I'm telling you, even just a couple years ago, even just last year, I saw more squirrels.
Yes, very bad.
My azalea bush that I planted, I don't know, 15 years ago, it blooms every year. It won't even come up. It came up, one thing, it's completely all white, moldy fungus all over it. It's not blooming. There's no animals out there. Where are the animal rights activists? Where are they? They should be out there saying, what's going on? The trees are dying. Right. The bark is like molded and white, and it's coming off the trees. It's not even, nothing is blooming out here. Nothing. It's spring. There's not a sound of a bird. Nothing. It's really, really frightening.
It's the same here, and this is, again, we know the species extinction rate, those appear to be even conservative right now. I mentioned the mold and the fungus issue earlier, and this is really on a planetary scale right now. So, I mean, the quite literal fact is we are in a fight for life. And I encourage people, again, not to shrink in fear from that, to be angry, though. I mean, it's okay to be angry at something like this. You should be angry. Who wouldn't be angry when you have a few people, a very, very few people at the top, literally pulling the strings and deciding the fate of the entire planet. And you have so many people in that chain that facilitate this insanity by doing their quote-unquote job, which is not excusable at this point. So, again, I hope people who listen to this and understand the gravity of it don't shrink in fear, but rather rise in anger and turn that anger to fuel for this fight and to engage as you two have. Richard, before we get too far, I mean, all of us are exposed to this. We know we have to stop it ultimately. I mean, just mitigating our own health temporarily is not going to alter the ultimate outcome if we can't stop the spraying, but yet it will keep us in better fighting form until we can hopefully stop it. A little bit of input here as far as, what Jan has gone to, what her and Luke have been exposed to, the symptoms they've had, what they can do about it.
Well, since our time is really limited, Dane, I'll just mention that there's a lot that can be done if you understand more about how the body works, how nature interacts with the body. There are things you can do that medical science is completely oblivious to because they're designed to be oblivious to it to support the medical drug industry, in my experience. If you can learn how the body actually operates, you can do a lot of things to make it incredibly resistant to bad health effects, even while the spraying's going on, so that while we're involved in trying to make things better, you can function, at 10 times the level that you're at now. If you understand these things, it has to do with very specific methods of detoxification, total change in nutrition, use of sunlight, which is not, in my experience, in my opinion, a cause of anything bad. It's an essential source of nutrients that we're not getting. All these things need to be understood, and if they're understood and applied correctly, it can revolutionize health for the better right now, even before the spraying stops. So I just want to let people know that that's definitely possible. It's already been figured out. It's not something that we're supposed to know about, that's all.
It's amazing to me how many people I know who take great care with, for example, their cars. They put the best fuel in the car, the best oil, and so forth, and then they stop off and grab a couple of Big Macs and whatever else they put down their own gas tank. It's astounding. I mean, it's how is a body supposed to function? In fact, it's amazing bodies can function given what they're given to go on. It's absolutely amazing. But Jan, Elizabeth, you guys have taken specific action. You're setting up now an event. I mean, you guys are constantly engaged in trying to move the ball forward, right? And that's what a lot of people aren't doing. They're not doing it. I hear about a lot of people once a month, literally, if that, when the spraying days are particularly bad for several days in a row, they'll jump up and down a little bit, but they don't actually do anything. They don't do a damn thing. And you guys have, and I salute you for that. So tell us more about what you've done and what you're setting up right now.
Okay, Luke wants to talk first, so let him do his little thing, and then he can go off on his own here.
Absolutely.
So you may be wondering, how I was about these chemtrails with me, and so when my mom started pointing out these chemtrails, I was starting to notice them. So my mom and I held a rally on Black Friday, cause on that day there was there would be a lot of drivers, cause there's many sales at every single store. We made posters and everyone was reading it. In March, me, Mom, and Jan went to a farmer's market We decorated and personalized envelopes for each vendor. They also contained Dane's posters. When we gave all the posters, we told each vendor that there was information about geoengineering, but to read it later because it has a lot of information. And most of the stuff, and at this farmer's market, they sold organic food, and I thought that was more helpful because they might have also, because maybe some of them might know about this geoengineering, because I know that organic food is best. Plus, also, if you just get it may be a bit expensive, but still, organic has no pesticides. So that way, there's more of a chance. So when you have to wash that, if you have to wash a pesticide off an apple, you may forget to wash a bit more, and then you may get a bit poisoning. So I know everything about fruits, vegetables, and vitamins. They're real good.
Luke, you're an inspiration. You really are. And are any of your friends at school aware of this, Luke? How many of your friends know about this?
Some of them.
Some of them do. So you're working on them, right?
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. We need more like you, Luke, and I absolutely salute you, my friend, and we'll keep in touch for sure. And Janet, and Elizabeth, what you guys have done is incredible, and it's for people like Luke that we're all in this. That's our children. We're in this for that fight. So you guys, you've done a lot. Again, in the short time you've been at this, you've done a lot. Give us a little outline of what you've done and what you're doing.
So then here's the other thing too, Dane. What we did here, Jan and I outlined a lot of this, and Luke was always involved with it as well. But one of the first things that we did was we wrote to all congressional leaders in the whole state. I've written to some outside of the state too, like in California. I've done a lot, but we decided to write to each one of them. But what we did was, it's important to remember that the wording is very important, because the first time I wrote, and this is just from experience, I wrote about chemtrails, and it was debunked and denied and, discredited, and, I was told that they were normal contrails and, they dissipate and that it's nothing to worry about. So I thought to myself, this is just absolutely crazy, and there's no way I'm going to accept this. So I started to look up, and I realized when we did the lab test, this is what got me really going, the same, like you said, ingredients that are in these lab tests from across the world, because I got to see so many being on, social media sites and whatnot, are the same exact ingredients that are coming up, the government documents and the ingredients in our lab test results. So people really need to understand. There's no denying that. So that was one thing. So I wrote back to the Congress leaders, Jan and I did, and we split them all up, and we wrote to each one, and we let them know that we had lab test results. We showed them pictures. We sent them a little booklet filled with all kinds of credible, factual information on stratospheric aerosol geoengineering and solar radiation management. And we use those terms because that is what the government knows. This is what your congressional leaders are taught and sit in Congress voting on to continue. So I figured if I talk their language, then hopefully they will respond. So this has been going on since December. We have been relentless, Jan and I. We will not stop following up with the schedulers. I've become, on a first-name basis, best friends with two of them because I call them every week, and I email them, and I continue to say, we're still here, ready for a meeting when you are, and there's, and that's what we're doing right now. We're still trying to get on.
I wanted to continue, but I want to highlight something you just went over that I so salute you for. You didn't just make a call and say, oh, well, I did my job, or I tried, and now I'm going to go back to doing nothing. You didn't do that. You kept trying. You're still trying. You're not giving up, and you're relentless, yes? And that's what people need to have in this equation, to be relentless, because we can't ignore this fight. Bottom line, if we don't win, all is lost. So anyway, continue, Jan, but I salute the fact that you are tenacious, Elizabeth, you and Jan, rather, that you guys are relentless in your pursuit of getting people's attention. Go ahead.
Every time. And the spring has stepped up unbelievable. In 6 months, you can't believe. It's amazing. Well, every time they're relentless, and they keep spraying, I'm relentless with that phone call, the email. I don't stop because I'm going to be as relentless as they are until they meet with us. And they sit down and they literally know that we know that they know this is going on.
I agree.
So
I agree.
that's
This
why.
is
And then,
mentality you see from the establishment. It's like if you found a body laying in the street with a dozen bullets in its back, and the establishment's mentality is, well, can you prove who murdered this person? And if you can't prove it, well, then a murder didn't happen. Well, clearly you have a murdered body there, but if you can't produce whatever they want you to produce to prove it, and then they just ignore the whole issue. And the sort of potato tossing, if you will, from one agency to the rest. Local agencies tell you to go to the state tells you to go back to local. It's just a circus of insanity, bottom line. But people, as people realize, as you guys obviously have, this is a fight for life. You can't just walk away from the first door that slams on your fingers. You have to keep it up.
exactly, and that's the thing too, is whenever somebody on Facebook starts their whining and complaining, and then I'll say, oh, here, did you send this? And just pass it. Oh, I can't do that, or I give up, or I don't want, you know what? This is our problem. It's our planet that we share as one. We all have to get together and all do something together. The excuses, the negativity, the doom and gloom, Debbie Downer stuff, I can't listen to that. I'm sorry, but we're fighting for our life, and we're fighting for everybody's life here, too. And we need more people to join on our bandwagon and help us out with this. We're not asking for anything other than clean air, clean water, and to be able to have a future for our children and our grandchildren. And so this is where I draw the line. I've had enough. I don't care who you are, what you do for a living, what you don't do for whatever. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from. We are together globally in on this, and we need to, all of us, fight together. That's the only way we're going to battle this.
I agree fully, and to keep the message simple, and as Richard often says too, and I completely agree with, that the bottom line is extremely simple, that we're all being sprayed, no matter what our views are on a lot of different aspects of this issue. That's not acceptable. That's not okay, as George Barnes says. It's not okay. So, all of us, on that simple point, we should be able to unite, and everybody should focus on moving the ball forward every single day. Russ, can you give the call-in number in case somebody wants to call in and ask Elizabeth, Jan, or Luke any questions?
Yes, absolutely. Anybody wants to call in, please just call in on the UCY line, which is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296.
I want to mention one other thing. We saw this. There's some sort of big weather disaster happening every time they need a distraction as well. Everybody saw the big mudslide in Washington. What our media is not covering very well is Afghanistan, who is now showing resistance to U.S. tyranny, finally. They just got slaughtered with massive flooding, and in fact, a mudslide just happened there. Now, whether they can destabilize with heart frequency and start to cause some of these hillsides to cave when they didn't for however many eons, a mudslide just killed, it is estimated, 500 people in Afghanistan. We don't hear a thing about that here. So it's certainly astounding how any country that shows resistance to U.S. policy gets slaughtered by a weather event. And right now, again, the U.S. is backed so far into a corner, and the global community is uniting finally against this tyranny. It's astounding. And it's astounding the people I know who understand they're being sprayed. They know their government's spraying them, and yet somehow when something happens overseas, they start waving their flags again, as if somehow our country's doing something right over there. I think we should look at the Indians. Let's look what happened to the American Indian and how they were treated. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. And now, including our own population being treated that way now as well. So I don't understand how people can't look for real data. And I want to also stress for people, I hope people tune into RT TV. It's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than anything our media is putting out. Way better. And I've seen them actually criticize Russia, Putin on various issues much more than our media would criticize any of our leaders. And their coverage on Ukraine is quite simply by far the most truthful, the most accurate. And our media, I've seen nothing but, I mean, literally complete, twisted, contorted, propagandistic lies. It's just an all-out lie machine. So RTTV, we have a link on Geoengineering Watch. It can be found in the upper left. Encourage people to watch RTTV. So, Jan, Elizabeth, tell us, you have an event coming up. Tell us what's going on with that.
We have a couple of events coming up. We have a meeting going on in the committee. It's a county one, and we have these candidates that are running for office, and one's congressional and the other is senator. And I invited them to the meeting to talk about certain things, but I also have another agenda. And the agenda is to raise awareness on the geoengineering issue, because one of them that I had reached out to said, oh my God, there's so much to know. And he sat down with me, and when I showed him the flyer and the evidence and the links, and he wanted more, he's like, email this link to me. I want to have this. So they are opening up, and actually one of them joined our Chemtrails New Jersey Facebook group because he wants to learn more about it. So I have to applaud people like this, because there are so many still, believe it or not, that do not know this is going on. Believe it or not, they do not know.
George Barnes was just on a big shoot, I think he said, with, I shouldn't repeat it, but Fox News, or some Fox station affiliate. You know, George is just, it's good that he's there. It's very good that he's there, because he's spreading the word. He said on the whole set, of the 60 people that were there, 58 of them had never heard of climate engineering. So, and George isn't afraid of speaking his mind, and he's really not. And I know he's taken a huge amount of flack in his industry for what he's putting out there, but he's given us a tool also. You know, I forget to mention this on my own show. I mention it on other shows always, but SkyderAlert.com, great interactive tool. Hope people put that to use. But yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't know about it. But anyway, continue on, Elizabeth.
And then we have another event coming up. Jan's going to talk about. She knows more about it than I do.
Yeah, they're having like a comedy show and a little magic show for children. And I met the guy. He was, a member of Campaign for Liberty, and he. Wait.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes, he was, a member of Campaign for Liberty, so he said he was having a table that had somebody was going to speak about GMOs, and he asked if I wanted to also have a table there and speak about geoengineering. So I said, well, great, I'll print up some flyers and, get some stuff together and go down there and try to wake more people up.
I think on the wake-up part, one thing that I would like to pursue further is universities. And I think I mentioned last week on my trip to the coast, I left them a lot of flyers, a lot of DVDs. But if we can get good contacts at universities to help people that are truly engaged in the cause to help circulate DVDs and flyers, more specifically flyers, because we can get a lot more of those out. But I would certainly like to hear from people if they have such a contact at a university of importance, and I will try to figure out a way to get flyers to you. So anyway, I want to stress that.
I have one at Rutgers. That I have actually two people. It's the actual environmental, biological, environmental group over at Rutgers, so I can give you that contact person there. But we did write to the media, universities, environmental groups, all kinds of farmers, the local farmers. We go visit them all the time, and we literally hand out the information, and it has the flyer, and it also has the link with the Monsanto, GMOs, and geoengineering from your website as well. And, people are, waking up. I do see that. And I would like to just say, we have great people on our team, Dane. Jan Peacock does the maps for us, that does all the aerial spraying all over the states, right? And we have Vicki, who's in Pennsylvania, who's been helping me get people together. And we have Sean Kearney, who is unbelievably awesome with helping with the awareness and all his videos and photographs, and Cheryl Thomas and Sally from Operation Blue Sky in New York City. And we have Christy, who has had the screenings with question and answer. She's invited you. Mary Lou and Greg Palin with all their help and the billboards. So there's a lot of people that are really going out there above and beyond, no matter how sick they feel. Jenna, she's out there all the time raising awareness. Linda Carr, she's unbelievable as well. I mean, these people are helping us out. They'll take what we have and they're like, oh, can you send that link, or tell me how we can do this? And we all correspond with one another, and it's amazing how people people that I have met in this fight, in this journey, and I have to say that's probably the best part of this whole thing.
It's good to be in good company, and I feel honored as well by all the people I'm surrounded with in this battle. And on the antithesis side of that, for those that I want to give a little update on the website, this information directory that Russ has up for us now. The framework is there. I think there's Doug Diamond from Memphis is going to participate in that. I think Greg Palin and Mary Lou might as well. If anybody's interested in helping with that site, we do have a need to come together and start posting the people who are towing the line for the insanity. Those who absolutely with a straight face lie about this issue and that it's not going on. The sort of quotes, if we can retain quotes from them, just like the quote I just read from this environmental group, Ecocide, to put their quotes up, their total denial, and to put their emails up so that people in the public can express their disdain at groups or people like this and their denial. And it's important to put the spotlight on these people because otherwise they stay in their comfort zone and sort of appease themselves while the house is burning down. That's simply not okay. It's not okay. So that website is up and running too, and anybody that wants to participate in that, please let me know. And I also, as you said, Elizabeth, people are waking up. I do have good contacts now in Fish and Game in Sacramento, California Department of Fish and Game, California EPA. EPA is allowing, I think I mentioned this last week, they're allowing me to do a presentation in their facility in Sacramento with a lot of their people in attendance. They're not sanctioning it, but they're allowing it. And it's a big step forward. So, and I have supplied huge data packages to EPA and Fish and Game. So for everybody, just like you and Jan have started spot fires everywhere, and Luke, even into school and so forth, we all have to start spot fires everywhere we can. And even for those who deny it, if they have a flyer, if they look at it, the seed's planted in there, and as the walls close in, and they're closing in by the day, again, most of those seeds will have no choice but to sprout, period. So,
and can we, also with the hosting this event coming up in June, Dane, what do you think with that? Are we good, or should try to, get that out more in different areas?
Yes, any way we can. This is the event coming up that you guys are working on, right? So, yeah, anything we can do to help get the word out on that, and people should use that as a model. They should use what you're doing as a model for doing something in their area, their region, to pull people together and get that kind of event going. So, perhaps you might, anything you want to pin on suggestions for people to put that together too, Elizabeth. I mean, it's, we need that kind of action being taken everywhere. And it's not hard to hold a viewing for a film. It's not hard at all.
No, it's not at all. And the thing is, I'm trying to get, some in Pennsylvania and some in New York and New Jersey so that we have people, because then we have people from those states that can spread it out to the others as well. So we're trying to join the surrounding states together in this, because I'll hear, people say, oh, it's really bad here in Pennsylvania. Well, it's bad here in New Jersey, too. And somebody in New York will say, oh, it's really bad in New York. Well, we're all together. We're joining states. So people need to know it's bad all over now. I don't even hear such a thing as, oh, we have no sprays at all. No, I have never seen a blue sky yet that's been blue, true blue. It's been white haze or grayish blue, and then they start spraying even heavier. So there's never such a thing as a virgin blue sky anymore.
It's almost gone. Russ, you moved from Maine thinking you might get a little relief where you're at now, but that didn't really happen. They've kind of ramped things up there too, right?
Yeah, I moved twice actually, Dane. I moved to Jamestown, New York. There was no spraying when I first moved there in 2003. The spraying started in November 2005 is when they started spraying daily. It was an absolutely blatantly obvious super low, slow flying jets. I got so sick after a couple years I moved to Maine, and then they ramped it up in Maine. I had gone on vacation twice there. It was very mild. They ramped it up real hard, and now I've moved to Philadelphia. So it's just getting horrible all over.
Yeah, it just keeps getting worse all over. But with that, we are, as things get worse above us, it's easier to point out. We are observing they're flying lower, at least in our regions. They are definitely flying lower than they were in years past. And this is certainly not a good thing. And I mean, it's bringing it that much quicker to a descent time. And on the groups that we can awaken, I wanted to point out there's a group of chiropractors in Southern California, a very big group that I've gotten in contact with now. Great people, absolutely great people, and they're 100% getting involved with this issue now. So that's another arena where people can focus their efforts wherever you're at. Reach out to the chiropractors. They tend to absolutely think out of the box, and they understand how completely corrupt the whole system is. The medical system, as Richard well knows, and these people don't really succumb to the same sort of education that Richard, you're still trudging through that, right? I mean, you're still involved in the system of indoctrination regarding education, right?
Yeah, I'm right in the middle of the whole PhD system of higher education right now.
It's not getting any better, is it?
No, I think it's intentionally designed to keep people from thinking, and it's doing a great job.
It's an amazing job. I mean, you can't imagine that so many people across the globe could so willingly just toe the line. But how much further do you have to go in that arena?
You mean me personally, are you talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just writing a dissertation on the holistic cure of cancer right now. And if once I get that done, if I can get it through all the people that have to approve it, then I'm finished with that. I don't have any desire to stay around in that arena.
Well, this is their mentality. I know we talked about this before, but it's so important. I know a few people within the system, a few from the Union of Concerned Scientists, and this is their viewpoint, quite literally. Unless or until any subject is stated on a peer-reviewed, establishment-ordained research paper, it doesn't exist. It's not real, and it's something they will not acknowledge, period. So it doesn't matter how blatantly, glaringly obvious, for example, what's happening in our skies is, they simply will not acknowledge it. And this is the sort of result of the kind of indoctrination you're talking about, yeah? So the house burns to the ground, and nobody even can acknowledge it was a fire. That's where we're at. It's a sad place to be in, but that's where we're at. So, it's up to all of us, again, to arm ourselves with credible data and go about this in an effective fashion, and like Jan and Elizabeth are. Richard, you've done some of that down your way too, right?
Some of what are you talking about?
You've done a little bit of. You've talked to some groups down your way, and you've put out some flyers and data and so forth. I mean, you said you had kind of mixed receptiveness there too, right?
That's true. I mean, I've a lot of the people that I've pointed out the spraying to, because I'm outdoors a lot during the middle of the day, and I've watched a lot of otherwise beautiful, clear days like today, for example, turn into the white haze that we were talking about a minute ago, and pointed the fake clouds out to people, and some of them just, think it's extremely funny and just walk away, that, I'm irretrievably insane for thinking that. But there are others that are a little bit more conscious, and there are groups, in Arizona that
You're in Sedona,
are focused
right?
on doing the same thing. I'm in Sedona in the north part of the state. Most of the so-called representatives, if they represent anything, it's the same mentality that you see in the higher education, so they're pretty much gone. It's very encouraging to hear whenever one particular one, finds out, still has somewhat of an open mind to, and actually wants to learn about what's happening. Those are unfortunately pretty rare, and so I was encouraged to hear the story of the one that wanted more information in New Jersey. That's a good sign.
I'm laughing with you when I think we all, Elizabeth, Jan, you guys have had those kind of encounters, right? And Russ, I mean, where, you share something with somebody about the aerosol issue in a very intelligent, scientific, rational way, and you can see the response is just this sort of defense, this is all crazy, you're crazy, and don't threaten my bubble sort of response. You guys have had that happen, I'm sure, yes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of it, and I have to say, as much as I like the social media, because we're the news, a lot of it is on social media, because when I do face-to-face with people, they do listen. I think I mentioned this to you, Dane. I went to meet with my tax guy during the tax season, and, I was sitting in the office and started talking, and I've known him for quite a few years. And I pulled out the information at the end, and I told him about it, and he's like, I have seen those white lines in the sky, and I always wondered what they were. He's like, oh, my gosh. And I gave him links, and I told him, here you go, look at it, research it, let me know. And then about a couple weeks later, I saw him in the parking lot. He happened to be in a store parking lot, and he's like, you know what? I look up and I see them all the time, and it's sick. These are psychopaths that are doing this. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, those are poisons. Those are aerosols. They contain, and he's telling me all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that was amazing to me, you know. But again, I think we do better in person, face to face, and doing events. I'm really not into fighting with trolls and shills on Facebook. I'm not into that. You know, I don't have time for that in my life. So I prefer to do all my work outside of social media, although I do social media, but, you know, I want to get out there more and less of social media.
You know, Dan, I'd like to.
Yeah, go ahead, Rush. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in real quick and just say to Liz that there are enough people who are open to this that if we just get out to the streets, and if people are not open to it, just move on to the next person. There are enough people who have the capability of comprehending and understanding this that we just need to reach those people. And I also want to mention we do have some callers in line if we want to take any callers. But
you know what? Yes, let me give one reply and then take one as fast as we can.
Yep.
Elizabeth, on your comment, don't argue with the trolls. I absolutely, positively agree. Can't stress that enough. I get probably 50 emails a week from people who want me to personally engage with whatever troll they're fighting with, as if somehow that will convince this person to wake up, the person who doesn't want to wake up and whose job it is to create dissension in our community. Don't waste your time. What you said, Elizabeth, is correct. What you said, Russ, is correct. Walk on. Kick the dust off your sandals and walk on to somebody who wants to wake up. Don't give attention to the trolls. That's exactly what they want. So go ahead, Russ.
yeah, I completely agree. We have a large Facebook group, 20,000 members now. Don't waste your time with trolls. Ignore them. Let them go away. Just get rid of them off your groups. Caller, we have a caller with the phone number that ends in 12. Are you on right now?
Yes, sir. This is Perry Du Bois from Texas.
Hi, Perry. Nice to have you with us. How you doing?
Good. I just wanted to mention the profit motive and how we combat, or how we can, from an educated standpoint, make the point about the profit motive, specifically the genetically modified part of it, and maybe land grabs is another possibility that government or whatever entities just want to take over land as farmers and ranchers go out of business. So if you could address that briefly and how we approach that with people that we run into.
It's part of it. It's certainly part of it, but what's important to remember is just like Monsanto creating their seeds, it's like the ship going down and you have certain deckhands that are trying to fill their pockets with loot, even though they're going to sink also. So although that's a factor right now, no question, you have even people engaged in that aspect of this equation that apparently aren't aware of the fact that they are going to sink with us. We're faced now with having to try to preserve the planet's ability to support life, period. So that is an aspect of it, but all of us, well, we're almost out of time, but it's up to everybody in this equation to try to figure out the most effective and efficient ways of moving the ball forward every single day. Every single day counts at this point. The walls are closing in at light speed. So arm yourself with credible data. Get up to speed a little bit. Do research. Keep your compass heading again. Too many people in this movement, too, are in the same sort of denial about some aspects of our overall global situation as those who refuse to acknowledge the spring. It's up to all of us to take our compass heading constantly, look at data constantly, reassess our perspectives constantly. Otherwise, we're stuck in a rut, just like those who have been trained not to look up or not to believe their government would do this to them. So anyway, I encourage everybody to do that. Closing comment, Jan, and then Richard and Russ. You can finish off, Russ, when we're done. Just a quick closing comment, and we'll press on.
Jan?
Well, I just like to thank everybody for, all the work they're doing. Of course, we need each other. I know Liz gives me a lot of inspiration because there was a long time there that I sat back a little bit, I have to admit, because, it seemed like nobody wanted to do anything. It feels like, when I was talking to people, they would just,
It's all of us pulling together, right? It's all of us pulling together that matters.
Yep.
Elizabeth, I think we're just about there, guys. Russ, go ahead and finish us off. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks, Richard, for your input. Russ?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Liz, Jen, and Luke. It's been a pleasure having you. This is Russ Tanner on behalf of Richard Sachs and Dane Wigington. and Geoengineering Watch Radio. We're here every week at 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Join us every Saturday at ucy.tv.